Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to this program. Tonight, I would like to talk about uh, the importance of facts, truth, as contrasts to slogans and empty rhetoric. Um, it is important we respect facts, we respect truth, because that is the only way we're going to have an intelligent conversation. And more significantly, we're going to arrive at better solutions. Um, I'd like to play you a short clip of President Barack Obama, and he explains this point better than I can. Listen to this.
Issues. This is part of why, to me, one of the biggest challenges of democracy is not just the mechanics of elections or uh, the independent judiciary. Those things are all important, but this is why this information and media issue is so important, because what we've seen here in the United States and elsewhere is a abandonment of a commitment to facts and reason and logic and stuff that is useful and
Some would say necessary.
necessary. And if we can't have a debate based on facts, then we can't get to better solutions, right? We start talking in slogans and nonsense, and there's no reality check. We just make stuff up. I didn't lose an election. There's something broken over there. And it doesn't, and it's impervious to facts.
Mm-hmm.
So part of what I think, why I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this disinformation issue is how do we, in how we teach our kids, in either industry standards or regulation of these social media platforms, how do we get back to the point where you can have opinions, we all do, but facts matter, and proof matters, and our capacity to debate and say, you know what, if we do things this way, it might work better, and then you may disagree, but at least we agree to a set of rules whereby we can arrive at a better solution.
Do you think it's possible to get to that place when almost half, let's just talk about the United States, where almost half the country says, well, what are those rules and why are you even deciding them? And while we're having this conversation, you are not even a fact. How do you, I honestly mean, how do you get to that place with people where you can
We're
agree
not,
on the rule?
the interesting thing is, even in those places that are just inundated with what I consider to be nonsense and lies and distortions, when people operate in their own lives, they're still operating on facts, right? On their jobs, when they're coaching their kids' little league or their soccer game or football game, they don't let the ref just kind of say, you know what, this time we're just going to get 5 points for the touchdown. It's like, wait. Folks on the sideline say, nope, it's 6 points for the touchdown, and then you get the extra point. And so we abide by all kinds of facts in our own lives. It's just this national story that is being told where we allow lies to be told, and we accept them mainly because it turns out that when we tell a story about the other side, it makes us feel better. It's like, Trevor, he's a jackass. You should see.
It has to be me who's the example.
You happen to be sitting here. And so we enjoy the performative aspects of making stuff up.
There we have it, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. The problems of abandoning facts. I think in Zimbabwe this is an important issue. We really tend to have these meaningless debates discussions, and as a nation, we've been going nowhere. I've just picked one example, a common example among the ZANU PF supporters and ZANU PF leadership, blaming sanctions for Zimbabwe's economic meltdown. That is not based on facts. That is not based on facts. We've gone through this for the last 20 years, and yet ZANU PF keep bombarding us with this propaganda that the economic meltdown is being caused by sanctions. That is not true. Take, for instance, the issue of when did Zimbabwe's economy started uh, failing. And if you look at the historic facts, you will see that soon after independence, in fact, the Zimbabwe economy started struggling straight away. Those of us who are old enough will tell you that by the mid 1980s, we started having shortages because ZANU-PF's economic policies were not working. By the beginning of the 1990s, the economy was already in such having such problems that we were forced to adapt the economic structural adjustment program, a 5-year program, 1990 to 1995. I remember it very well because Bernard Chizero was the Minister of Finance then, and he returned from Washington after having met the IMF and the World Bank and agreeing on that program, announcing that we needed all to tighten our belts. We need to readjust the economy so that we can restart the economy. And part of the readjustments was certain things were to go, uh, things like subsidies for food, uh, petrol, and so forth had to go. And the government had to cut back on welfare, um, education. Some of the schools had been, it was free education, and you find out now suddenly they started introducing the school fees by the back door in subtle ways. Uh, hospital, initially it was free health care, and they started reintroducing it by charging for some of those healthcare attention you get. So that was one way. But the other way was there were supposed to be cuts in government expenditure, and particularly the bloated civil service, army, um, the parastatals. That was another big waste of money, and there were supposed to be cuts there. But you find with government implemented the easy reforms, which affected the ordinary person, but did not touch any of the reforms that required the big chefs to cut back. So we ended up with a situation where the ordinary person was being asked to tighten their belt, and we did. Meanwhile, the ruling elite were loosening their belts because their stomachs were getting bigger and bigger. And so at the end of 1995, that structural adjustment program it failed to deliver the economic recovery that Bernard had promised. So government negotiated with the IMF and the World Bank yet another 5-year program, 1995 to 1999, to year 2000. That also failed to deliver any meaningful change because of the same reason. Government was willing to trim um, savings on ordinary people, but the chefs, instead of tightening their belts, they were going down, loosening them even more. So by the year 2000, the Zimbabwe economy was then in serious trouble. And it could not pay its debts. Even some of the money that had been given to help it through the during the economic structural adjustment program, it found it could not service those loans. So the IMF and the World Bank stopped giving ZANU-PF any meaningful financial assistance. That had the repercussions that some of the other international um, financial institutions, like the Paris Club, also stopped giving ZANU-PF, the Zimbabwe government, any financial assistance. So you find the problem with borrowing money had its roots end of 1999 2000. So when the Western countries imposed sanctions in 2001, the Americans, particularly with their Zidera, one of the conditions was that the IMF and the World Bank should not give Zimbabwe any financial assistance. ZANU-PF has made a big issue out of this as part of its drive to have the sanctions lifted. But the truth of the matter is, by then, the IMF and the World Bank was not giving Zimbabwe any money because it was servicing its loans. And even if we look at the time, ZANU-PF itself, Robert Mugabe himself, turned around and said, well, we don't care about the World Bank and uh, the sanctions imposed by the West. We'll start looking east. That's when he started with his look east policy. Yes, the Chinese did give Zimbabwe financial assistance between 2001 and 2002, 3, and so forth, but they soon also stopped for the same reason because Zimbabwe was not servicing its debt. It was borrowing money but was not paying back. So to say that the economic problems in Zimbabwe were caused by sanctions, that is a lie because the economic meltdown started long before the sanctions were imposed. And I could go on and argue about, say, during the GNU, the economy after the GNU recovered by a staggering 12% when all along it had been melting. And yet the sanctions were still in place. So it was not the sanction that caused the economic that is causing the economic meltdown. But the facts are being ignored, and now we are being fed with this propaganda, and we start running away with it. The other point is the problem with our MDC friends. MDC and Triple C supporters, like the rest of ordinary Zimbabweans, by the late 1990s, realized that in Zimbabwe, as long as ZANU-PF is able to rig the elections, we will never get anywhere. So the nation decided that we need a democratic change. Sadly, particularly for the MDC supporters, they have taken to change like a duck to water. They have been calling for change ever since. But sadly, they have no clue what, if you ask them, name one democratic change, they don't know. Even the leaders themselves don't know, much less how they are to be implemented. And this, of course, explains why MDC failed when they had the golden opportunity to implement the reforms during the 2008 to 2013 GNU. They failed to implement even one reform. Yes, some of them was because, frankly, I don't think they they knew what the reforms are. But others, such as Tendai Biti, David Coulthard, Professor Welshman Nguwe, I expect they would be able to tell us what the democratic changes are. The only reason why, of course, they failed to implement any is that they were very comfortable in the GNU. Mugabe bribed them with the trappings of power, and in return, they forgot about the reforms. They didn't want to upset Mugabe by implementing even one democratic reform. And hence, we found ourselves in this situation where even today, we still, because at the end of the GNU, the opportunity was lost, and ZANU PF emerged out of that GNU with all its dictatorial powers in place, including the carte blanche powers to rig elections. And that's why it continues to rig elections to this day. And when you try to talk to some of our MDC Triple C supporters, it is disappointing that they do not respect the facts, the historic facts. Those are the historic facts. For 22 years, MDC, Triple C leaders have been on the political stage. Name one democratic change they've implemented in those 22 years. You can't name one. They can't name one because they didn't implement even one. Those are the historic facts, and we need to respect historic facts. That's then and only then can we start having a meaningful debate. The reason why we have failed to have any meaningful debate with the MDC supporters is because they cannot accept those facts. Just as much as ZANU PF supporters cannot accept the reality that sanctions were not the root cause of Zimbabwe's economic meltdown, but corruption and mismanagement are the root cause of Zimbabwe's economic meltdown. And ZANU PF, with its propaganda machine, was able to persuade even some of the SADC countries to take up the call for the sanctions to be lifted because they're the ones holding back Zimbabwe's economic development. It's all nonsense. Corruption and mismanagement are the root causes of the economic meltdown. But this is one way all Zimbabweans, be it MDC and the ZANU PF supporters, and the ordinary person who could honestly say, maybe I don't belong to any particular party, are to blame. This is the point of free, fair, and credible elections. It is unforgivable that after 42 years of independence, we are still failing to hold free, fair, and credible elections. In this day and age, the main reason for it is, of course, we have not bothered to understand the facts. What is it that constitutes free, fair, and credible elections? And agree to that and stick to that and enforce it. One of the basic requirements for free, fair, and credible elections is that we should agree on who is eligible to vote. We should have a voters' roll that clearly says who is on the voters' roll. We can all see it and say, okay, is so and so entitled to be on that voters' roll? Yes or no? That should be open. That should be able to, everybody should be able to see it for themselves. That is the whole point. And yet we have found ourselves in a situation where we are having elections and we don't even have a verified voters roll. One of the interesting developments of that, of course, is in I think it was 1990, when Margaret Longo contested the Harare South as an independent. Remember, Margaret Longo was a, a former ZANU-PF MP herself when she fell out, and then the 1990 elections, she contested as an independent. Oh, sorry, is it 1990 or 1995? Anyway, she contested as an independent. I think it was 1995. And because she had inside information about ZANU PF operations and so forth, she was able to be informed by some of her own former colleagues that they had voted in that election, although they were not even on the voters' roll. And that's why she was able to successfully challenge that result and produce the evidence, affidavits of people who said, I live in one part of Harare, and yet I was allowed to vote in Harare South. And a close examination of the voters' roll that year, the rule was each time somebody voted, their name was crossed off the voters' roll. A close examination of the voters' roll showed people who were dead voted that year. That is one of the reasons why you need to be able to look at the voters' roll. It should be inspected. We should have a verified voters' roll. And yet, in fact, the law itself says that you should produce a verified voters' roll at least a month before nomination day when you're talking of the nationwide general elections. Yet, for 42 years, we failed to produce that. And of course, one of the things that people have got to be outraged about is that why did the opposition keep on insisting in participating in these elections when there isn't even something as basic as a verified voters roll? Why? There are other ways ZANU-PF has rigged these elections. And clearly, this is a process of you need to see the rules. The rules say we must have a verified voters roll. The rule says we must have a free media. Why are we not having those basic things? Why are the opposition participating when they know there are none of those basic things? As for the reason why the opposition keep participating, the answer is very simple. They are participating, the leaders at least, are participating because they know that ZANU-PF, to win legitimacy, needs to show that Zimbabwe is a multi-party democracy. And therefore, then ZANU-PF has been giving away at least a third or so of the parliamentary seats and winning for itself the two-thirds majority in the presidency. And and this has been an arrangement that suited the opposition. As long as they get at least some of their guys in parliament on the gravy train, they've been content with that. But when they come to their supporters, they've been able to convince them that they can win rigged elections. Ridiculous arguments, absolutely ridiculous. How do you win rigged elections? Particularly when we've seen what ZANU-PF means when they rig elections, as shown by the 2008 elections, when Morgan Tsvangirai won 73% of the vote in the March vote, and when the ZANU-PF vote rigging machinery was switched on, This was whittled down so that he ended up with 47%, forcing a runoff. But opposition supporters themselves are to blame. They refuse to see the facts on the ground and accept them. This is a totally meaningless election. We are keeping on repeating, participating in it, giving ZANU-PF legitimacy, and then the opposition invariably always complain that ZANU-PF has stolen the elections. Yet all along, they are telling us they've got strategies of winning rigged elections. But come the morning after the election, they suddenly admit that the elections were stolen. They never mentioned that their strategies were all hot air. And so it is a problem for the supporters as much as the citizens who keep on participating because you are refusing to see the facts. And the facts matters. And as long as you refuse to see the facts, you will always be vulnerable to being conned and being told one thing when you know quickly that one thing is a lie. In Zimbabwe, we have got to end this madness of 42 years of rigged elections. It is insane. We have got to look at the facts on the ground. I believe the solution is we cannot stop ZANU-PF going ahead with the 2023 elections. Nor can we stop Chamisa and company participating in those elections. But what we can do is say it and say it loud right now until the day the elections are held. That this election process is flawed. We must refuse to participate in it in any way and denounce it from the word go. The elections are being rigged in advance. We must denounce the process in advance. And we must make sure that the SADC in particular does not endorse the 2023 elections and grant ZANU-PF legitimacy. If ZANU-PF is denied legitimacy, we will go back to the situation we were in 2008, where we were forced to go into a government of national unity. The subtle difference this time is that we'll see to it that the reforms are implemented in full so that the next elections are going to be free, fair, and credible. That is the only way we're going to get out of this mess. That is the cure to this curse of rigged elections and bad governance. Just before I go, I thought I'll conclude with showing you the video of President Obama um, that I started the video with. He's talking of something slightly different, the importance of democracy. Just listen to this.
Those countries that have the ability to harness everyone and everybody participates and there's consent and people feel like, all right, this is working for us, versus places that are failed states. The track record of democracy is pretty good, but we have to be forceful in making our argument. And what is true is that we can't just talk; we got to walk the walk. Which
there we have it. I hope you found this video clip useful and relevant. Thank you and good night.